I had 3 days to sit with this. I was actually, it's funny enough, man. I was in my car. I was in the Mustang. I was on the Cross Bronx Expressway, which is absolutely the worst ever. You do not want to be stuck in traffic on the Cross Bronx Expressway. I was on my way to New Jersey in the middle of rush hour on Friday to go see Miles Kennedy and Wolfgang Van Halen on Friday in Montclair, New Jersey. Well worth the frustration in traffic. I'm sitting in traffic and, I'm at a standstill, so I'm on Twitter, and then the first thing that I see is this tweet from WrestleVotes. Love the guys over at WrestleVotes. Don't love them for breaking our hearts here. It's not their fault. I see this tweet as I'm sitting in traffic on the Cross Bronx Expressway, and they are detailing that SmackDown is going back to 3 hours. Starting January 2nd, 2026, from the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. And that is going to be the first of many 3-hour blocks of Friday Night SmackDown. Now, I've had a couple of days to sit with this. We're going to talk about this. We're actually going to go over some of what I thought of SmackDown as well, because I've taken enough time away from the office. I got to get some content out there. I'm itching to talk about some of these things. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about SmackDown. We're going to talk about why it's not good to go back to 3 hours, why the show doesn't need to be 3 hours, why the show worked at 3 hours, but now it doesn't, what changes they need to make sure that this is a lot better than the last time they went back to 3 hours. We're going to talk about it all right here today. We're also going to talk about Zack Ryder being back. Matt Cardona, where is he? I don't know, but Zack Ryder's back on WWE TV for the time being. He was in the John Cena last time, is now a tournament against LA Knight. Charlotte Flair right now is off the War Games team for the women, and Drew McIntyre is now a part of the Vision, working hand in hand with Paul Heyman. We'll go over all that today on Off the Script. It is your Sunday, November 16th, 2025. Oh, my goodness, man. SmackDown's going back to 3 hours. WrestleVotes, you've seen the tweet. This is not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination. The change will not happen until after the holidays have concluded, but it won't be much longer after New Year's Eve. January 2nd is the date that they go back to 3 hours. KeyBank Center in Buffalo is currently scheduled to be the first SmackDown to return to the 3-hour block, according to WrestleVotes. SmackDown started 2025 off, if you guys remember, as a 3-hour show, but that last hour was dropped back on the 4th of July. I hope that's more of the same. We'll actually get into that a little bit as well. There's no confirmation from WWE or USA Network that the show is changing formats once again. As of this writing, it's not hard to imagine both parties jumping at an opportunity to bring in additional revenue with the extra hour of programming. You know, there are several fans, thousands of fans, that did not grow up in the period where we were given 3-hour Raws for a good 13-year stretch. A time that I do not ever want to go back and relive again. Shows that I will probably never go back and ever watch again. Just an awful time. Not to say that there weren't memorable moments or things that popped us, but 3 hours for a weekly professional wrestling show is just awful. It is absolutely awful. See, this is what we complain about when Tony Khan wants to do 7-hour pay-per-view marathons. It's unnecessary. Nobody wants to sit through 7 hours of anything. Ever. There are people who agree with this move. Why? I don't know. The only thing I can come up with is the fact that they didn't relive those 3-hour Monday Night Raws for over a decade. There are a lot of newer fans. There are newer fans that don't really care about what happened back in the day, have no idea what happened back in the day, the nuances of the way things were done back in the day compared to how they're done today. They don't care. None of them care. None of them care to know, and they don't want to know anything. They were conditioned, and they were raised on 3-hour Monday Night Raws, and they think that we have the need for 3-hour SmackDown. Monday night operated the best at 2 hours, which is why I was so thrilled. It was a very good decision on WWE's behalf. When Monday Night Raw moved to Netflix, we were given 2.5 hours. That is the sweet spot. If you don't want to do 3 hours, do 2.5 hours. And that's exactly what they did. Now, Monday Night Raw, it has its problems, but by far and away, it is the best WWE show of the week. It feels important. It feels big. They got a better roster. There's just more of a must-see factor on Monday night than there is compared to a Friday night. I don't know what SmackDown's doing on Friday, but it genuinely feels like there's two separate writing teams. It almost feels like a completely different company, honestly. It feels like someone from WWE is running Monday Night Raw, and it feels like something out of an AEW nightmare on Friday night. It's like a bunch of clueless hacks running Friday Night SmackDown that don't know what the fuck to do. 2-hour Raws were it. 2-hour Raws were it. We grew up. Us, the smart people, grew up with 2-hour Raws. We all knew that was the right place to be. Then we moved to 3 hours, and there was a subsection of fans that grew up with that and realized that was the way. They only knew that. And now they're conditioned to think that 3 hours is the best thing for every WWE show. Longer pro wrestling is better for pro wrestling. It's not. SmackDown does not need to be 3 hours. The only reason why they're moving SmackDown back to 3 hours is because of greed. That is it. They're moving SmackDown back to 3 hours for more advertising revenue and more advertising opportunities. They're also moving SmackDown back to 3 hours because the ratings for SmackDown have absolutely fallen off a cliff, which in this case doesn't make any sense. They've fallen off of a cliff, and they feel like with the extra hour that maybe that could be recouped going into the winter months. WWE is paying attention to the ratings. WWE sees the decline in the overall viewership and the demographic with the new Nielsen ratings and how they are calculated. SmackDown doesn't need to be 3 hours. A complete idiot thinks SmackDown needs to be 3 hours. It doesn't. They just got back to conditioning us, and they just got back to formatting a 2-hour show. Now they have to go back and start to train themselves on how to do 3 hours on a Friday night. From 3 hours to 2 hours, now back to 3 hours. What do you think that does mentally to the writing team? They can't even get 2 hours right. Now you're asking them to extend the show, which does not need to be extended. On most weeks, you could get everything you need out of SmackDown in 20 minutes. You're asking these people to write a 3-hour program on Friday again with the current state of the show? How do you look at that as a good thing? Who is benefiting from 3 hours? People think, oh, well, this will give more time to the women's division. Who? Who exactly do you want to see on television? At a 3-hour SmackDown every Friday night, who do you want to see on television? Mia Yim? B-Fab? Did you see Jade Cargill and B-Fab on Friday? Oh my God, I wanted to pull my fucking eyeballs out. Yes, that's exactly what we need to do. Extend SmackDown to 3 hours so we can get more Jade Cargill and B-Fab. There is nobody on that active roster on Friday night that even deserves television time. Yes, let's move SmackDown back to 3 hours so we could get Kit Wilson on Friday night so he could spread his message about toxic masculinity. Bro, shut the fuck up. You should not be engaging in any pro wrestling discussion whatsoever. SmackDown worked at 3 hours when it was working. During the Rock, Cody finishing his story era. During the Bloodline era. It worked. Do you want to know why it worked, chat? Do you want to know why SmackDown at 3 hours wasn't as bad as people are making it out to be now? And do you know why SmackDown is suffering now? And why it's only going to be made worse now? The one pissing. Yes, I'll be fucking pissing my sorrows away watching this fucking show. The one thing that's missing from this show is story. You don't get a sense. There is not even a fucking iota of a story off this show that keeps you engaged, that keeps you interested, that keeps you in this mindset of, you know what, I can't wait to watch next week's show. I can't wait until this week is over, and I can't wait to get excited to see what's happening next week on Friday Night SmackDown. Story. Why it worked so well during the Bloodline era is because there was so much story coming out of the Bloodline and so much story with the revolving characters in the Bloodline and the tensions within the Bloodline with the Honorary Uce, with Jimmy, with Jay, with Roman, with Jay and Roman, Jay and Jimmy, Jay and Sammy, Solo Sikoa being fucking an absolute dominating force as an enforcer, as the right-hand man to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns on television more than we see him now. Paul Heyman. The segments that we got, the in-ring, backstage segments that we were given with them, they totally own the show. We could not get enough of the Bloodline. It is easy to write a 3-hour SmackDown when you can give me fucking Samoan trials or whatever the fuck they did, and in-ring segments, Honorary Uce. It's easy to write a 3-hour show when you got those 6 guys taking up a half an hour to 40 minutes of an opening segment. It's almost as if you can go and do a 2-hour show, but give those guys 40 minutes of the 3 hours. It is easy to do that. Just give them the ball, give Heyman and those guys the story, and let them write. And let them give us good television. And then it doesn't even matter what happened over the course of the next 2 hours. You can give me mediocre fucking this and that. But one thing people will remember and feel people are going to feel substantial. They're going to be full. They're going to look back at that 3 hours and say, you know what? That show wasn't that bad. That show wasn't that bad. Because we got story. They felt fulfilled at the end of those 3 hours because they got 40 minutes of tensions, 40 minutes of, oh man, it could go in this direction, that direction, this direction, that direction. They felt substantially satisfied because they got story, long-term booking. So you want to go back and watch 3-hour SmackDowns. The one thing that they had then was story. Now you're going to go back to 3-hour SmackDowns when you can't even get 2-hour SmackDowns right. And the one thing that's been missing from 3-hour SmackDowns now and 2-hour SmackDowns now is story. There's not one singular story on this show that is going to keep you coming back for more. None. Zero. So what exactly is the problem? The problem isn't the length of the show. It was never the length of the show. It's the fact that they don't have any fucking stories to keep you interested across 2 hours or 3 hours. It's not the length of the show. It's not the problem. It's the fact that they've lost their way. They don't know what to do or who to use to get them to where they need to be. With what roster are you going to run a 3-hour SmackDown? Have you looked at this roster? With what roster? There's no main event talent. Randy Orton's fucking on permanent vacation. Jacob Fatu's going on a hiatus to get dental work. There's no main event talent. Cody's on fucking Monday Night Raw mixing up with the Vision. The only time these 2-hour shows even felt close to where they needed to be is when SmackDown borrowed from NXT and when SmackDown borrowed from Raw. We get Raw superstars coming over to Friday. We get fucking NXT guys from Tuesday coming over to Friday to fill in the gaps because they have nobody. Yet you want me to sit here and openly praise a 3-hour show now? Praise the decision to go back to a 3-hour show? Changes, massive changes. And I mean changes that would change the landscape of the show completely. Turn the show upside down. Those are the changes that need to be made. The length of the show is not the problem. It was never the problem. It's the fact that the writing team is fucking horrendous and the fact that they have no stories coming out of Friday night. The most singular, biggest thing on Friday Night SmackDown, the best story that they were telling for weeks was The Miz and Carmelo Hayes. And a fucking second grader could write that story. Their level of storytelling is throwing Ilya Dragunov or Sami Zayn out there for a United States Open Challenge, and that's what they want people to come back and watch every week for. The unpredictability of who's going to challenge for the United States Championship. There's no story there. You want more MFTs? I don't. There's not one singular thing on that show that's gonna keep your interest over 3 hours. It's not the length of the show. It is the fact that they have nothing going on in the time that they're on the air. There needs to be an absolutely major shift in talent from NXT to SmackDown or Raw to SmackDown. There needs to be a transfer window. There needs to be a draft. There needs to be something that's going to make this roster feel more full. Shawn Michaels might not like this, but there needs to be at least a half a dozen to at least 10 NXT talents, or mixed with Raw, 10 stars that need to move from Raw to SmackDown or NXT to SmackDown to make sure that this show feels fresh and new. That's what needs to happen. And then they need to give me some solid story that's going to keep me coming back wanting more. Otherwise, this is not going to work. I don't know how you look at that. Go to WWE.com and look at the SmackDown roster and tell me if you can book a 3-hour fucking show with the talent that's existing on this show right now. There's not one singular talent on this show that you care to watch, and there's not one singular talent that you hope gets more TV time or you care for that's going to get more TV time during this move from 2 to 3 hours. Stop bullshitting everybody and stop bullshitting yourself. You're a fucking fraud. Nobody wants this move. Nobody. And if you think this is a good move, it's not. It's not. It never was, and it never will be. 2 hours is the sweet spot. 2.5 hours is a medium. That's the only thing I would accept. 2.5 hours. No, but USA's got to be greedy. WWE's got to answer to the USA Network because USA Network's paying WWE. They've got no voice in this fight. They got to do what USA Network wants because USA Network is the one paying the bills. I don't know how they look at 3 hours as a success. The 3 hours is only going to ruin the rating. It's not going to help the rating. That third hour is a fucking killer. It always brings the overall rating down. So if it's a ratings thing, it's only going to be worse. No, but they want that advertisement money. That's all they care about. Greed. Everything that you love is being killed by corporate greed. Everything. From gaming to movies to your pro wrestling. Greed. That's all people care about. I don't know if these things are going to happen. But these are the only things that could offset the feeling of dread that we have right now. Now, the report did mention here, I need to state this. The report did mention that SmackDown started off in 2025 as a 3-hour show, and then they shifted gears back to 2 hours in the summer. This could be the way that USA Network wants SmackDown to operate in the months where there is no new television programming, and they need WWE, which is their most popular program, to kind of offset the fact that there's nothing new and nothing of interest, and WWE generates on a terrible week even the highest ratings on the network. So WWE giving an extra hour to SmackDown in the middle of the winter time when nothing is going on, this could be their new strategy, USA Network, going into the winter months and then coming out of the winter going into the spring and fall, or spring and summer. It is WrestleMania season as well. Royal Rumble season, going into Chamber, going into WrestleMania. So the shows, by default, you would think, are going to be more interesting. And over 3 hours, that is the hottest time for their television programming. So you would think that 3 hours is actually going to be better during WrestleMania season. This past year wasn't, because the shows were still terrible and WrestleMania's build itself was terrible. Hopefully we're going to get some change going into next year. But they may be thinking about these things, and thinking about moving to 3 hours doesn't sound as bad during WWE's busiest season of the year. Only to then get through WrestleMania season, go through the spring, right at the beginning of the summer, and then move the show back to 2 hours, where there is no one watching the show because everybody's out enjoying the summer. Everybody's out enjoying themselves. Nobody wants to be in watching pro wrestling on television on a Friday night in the middle of the summer. There's 1,000 other things that you would rather be doing. Maybe that's their mentality. But still, 2 hours, 3 hours, it doesn't matter. It's not the length of the show. It's about what you put into the show. And what they're putting into the show is absolutely zero effort. Things need to be done to make sure that this is as smooth of a transition as possible. What happens to Braun Strowman's new show? I do think that he got re-upped for a second season. Speaking of which, Braun Strowman actually got bigger ratings, not bigger than Dynamite this week with Blood and Guts, but the week prior. They did, with that Braun Strowman show, more ratings than AEW Dynamite did on Wednesday. So Strowman and order everything off the menu, or everything on the menu, whatever his new show is, did a bigger rating than Dynamite on Wednesday. People would rather see Braun Strowman eat food than watch the sickos produce the product on Wednesday night where the best wrestle. It's kind of sad, ain't it? I love it. I think it's fucking hilarious. So I don't really know what they're going to do. I hope that they make the appropriate changes to make the 3 hour move in January worth it. I need to see Jordan Grace. I need to see Obafemi. I need to see Ricky Saints. People who are ready. And this is why I said Shawn Michaels might not like it. I need to see people who are main roster ready now make the jump to the main roster. This show needs something. I don't know what that something is, but it needs something. And I hope for the best. You know, it's not good for us either as content creators. You think I want to be going live later? No, I want to get done earlier. This is not helping me either. I don't want to sit here on a Friday night till 1:30 in the morning covering Friday Night SmackDown. One of the positives about being a creator who does what I do, on Friday night, the show ends at 10. I go live at 10:20. I'm out by just a little over midnight. I get to bed earlier. I get a little bit more time on my PlayStation playing whatever I'm playing now. It works out. So we will see what happens there. That's the latest on SmackDown. Anything coming out of this story, I will definitely let you guys know. Now, as far as Friday night, I did watch a couple of big things that happened on the show. Matt Cardona, he did not make his return to the WWE. Zack Ryder did. He was the mystery opponent for LA Knight in the John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament. Decent match. Great to see him back. I think he is not only great, but one of the most influential pro wrestlers today is Matt Cardona. And I think everybody should look up to him as what to do if you are looking for life after WWE. He is tremendous, and I wish him nothing but the best. I'm a huge fan of his. I think him being back on Friday night, if I'm Triple H, I'm jumping at the fact to give this guy a fucking contract, and I'm looking to make him one of the faces of that fucking brand, honestly. I don't know why it hasn't been done already. The only thing I could possibly think of is that, and he said that he would never bring the Zack Ryder character back, that Zack Ryder, and the character's dead. Yet all of a sudden we see him back on Friday night as Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder is WWE. Matt Cardona is not. I don't think that WWE is going to utilize Matt Cardona. They want to make money off of Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona does not want to give the WWE the right to his name. I don't know what that entails or what comes out of that if something like that is done. Maybe that is what the holdup is. Zack Ryder, WWE owns that intellectual property. It's easy for him to slide right in there and play the character of Zack Ryder. But it is kind of silly that just a couple of weeks ago, he wrestled Josh Briggs on NXT as Matt Cardona, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks later on Friday Night SmackDown, he's wrestling LA Knight as Zack Ryder. It's great to see him back. LA Knight got the win. He goes on to the quarterfinals now. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this tournament plays out. I don't know who he wrestles. I'm assuming this is just based off what we saw Jey Uso and The Miz wrestled on Friday night as well, with Jey Uso getting the win over The Miz, which, I mean, not really a surprise, but there were a small pocket of people that thought The Miz should advance, which I would have loved to see Miz versus Carmelo Hayes in this tournament. Clearly, they're not going in that direction. I could see Carmelo Hayes, who is in this tournament wrestling Bronson Reed next week, I could see The Miz actually costing Carmelo Hayes his spot in that match and ruining his tournament chances, which I hope is not the case, because if what we see is correct with the rest of the people in this tournament, I think Hayes should go deep into this tournament. I really do. So, Jey Uso beat The Miz. LA Knight beats Zack Ryder. I could see LA Knight and Jey Uso wrestle one-on-one. Again, we don't have the brackets, but being that we got these two matches on this show, I would assume the winners of these matches are going to meet in the next round of the tournament. But it was great to see Zack Ryder back, and he does have some new merchandise out on WWE Shop, which people thought, if he's got new merchandise out, he must be back full-time with the WWE. No, Zack Ryder said this was only a one-off, and that he's always ready if the phone call is made. So I'm hoping to see him back. And come the 3-hour move in January, I would absolutely bring Zack Ryder back to the WWE and make him a pivotal piece to that Friday night program. Charlotte with Alexa, Rhea, and Io make up the 4 right now for the Women's War Games. On Friday, Charlotte told Rhea that she doesn't like Rhea Ripley. She thinks Rhea Ripley is a snake, and she doesn't trust her. And she told Alexa, Lexi, I can't do this anymore. And she walked away and basically walked off the team. So now they're down to 3. WWE, I thought they were going to go 4 because they gave off the perception that there would be 4 women on one side, 4 women on the other. There really doesn't, it doesn't make any sense to include anybody else, because at that point you're just throwing random people in there for the sake of filling out 5-on-5. So we were left with the impression on Friday that it was 3 on one side now and 4 on the other. There will be 5 because Rhea Ripley says that we have to find 2 more. Now, for all the, well, let's add Lyra and Bayley to that mix. No. WWE is simply doing this because they know that there really isn't much story going into this Women's War Games outside of Rhea, Io, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. So they wanted to give off the perception that there is some tension. We have 2 weeks left to build. They don't know where else to go, so they figured, let's have Charlotte play off some of her history with Rhea Ripley, remove herself from the equation, and then now the story is going to be, how do they get Charlotte back, or what's going to be the situation that brings Charlotte back where they can cohesively exist together. Meanwhile, they still have to only find 1 more. So at this point, I'm still not excited about the Women's War Games. I don't really care about anything that's going on there outside of Rhea, Io, Asuka, and Kairi Sane, because that's been a primary story on Monday night being told. It's the only thing worthy of maybe being in a War Games. So who do they add now? Charlotte will be back over the course of the next 14 days. But if it's 5-on-5, who else do they add? I could see Becky Lynch being added, though she doesn't make any sense outside of a small interaction she had with Asuka 2 weeks ago, where Asuka was walking out, and I believe this was during the tag team championship match with Charlotte and Alexa. There was a look from Asuka to Becky, Becky to Asuka. Not in a way where they were building towards tension between them, but maybe some common ground. So I could see Becky being on the heel team, and then come Monday, Madison Square Garden, I could see one of two things happening. AJ Lee being added, because I was at the big event on Saturday, and AJ Lee had a line out the door. AJ is in New York. She was on Long Island. She will be in New York, so I could see AJ being a part of Raw and being integrated into the War Games to continue that Becky-AJ dynamic. Or if AJ's not there, they can slide in Maxine Dupree, but I don't really get a sense that WWE is going to put Maxine Dupree on the War Games team. Maxine may win the Intercontinental Championship due to help with AJ Lee, or from AJ Lee, which gives off the perception that AJ gets added to the babyface team, and then Becky gets added to the heel team, and then they have a reason there. Is it reason enough to put them inside War Games? No, but I could see that actually playing out that way, with AJ already being in New York, helping Maxine win the IC title. Maxine's the new champion. Becky loses the championship due to AJ, and they get added as the final pieces to their respective War Games teams. Maybe. So we'll see what happens there. And then Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre got added. Poor Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer was the one who reported that Drew McIntyre was going to be off TV to go film a movie. My guy, Nick Lopiccolo, who is the agent to the stars for Paradigm, he has blasted Dave Meltzer, and it's some of the best online content on social media right now, with him going at Dave Meltzer and making Meltzer look like a complete goofball. But Nick said that Drew McIntyre is not filming a movie. Henry Cavill, I believe, is out, injured, so production of the movie had stopped or halted until he gets better. That's the movie Drew McIntyre was going to be a part of. I don't know, what, Highlander or something. I think that's what it is. I'm not really sure. But the movie is going to resume filming, I believe, in April of 2026. And that's on hiatus right now. So that was never the case. And WWE wrote McIntyre off of TV for strictly storyline purposes. WWE took McIntyre off TV for a week. They brought him back. And now he's a part of the men's War Games team for the Vision. So it's Paul Heyman leading, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Drew McIntyre, and Logan Paul. McIntyre and Logan Paul teamed at SummerSlam against Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. McIntyre has an issue with the Bloodline. McIntyre has an issue with CM Punk. McIntyre has an issue with Cody Rhodes. So his inclusion is deep. It runs deep into this War Games match. Now, with Cody on the babyface side, McIntyre's inclusion makes sense as to why Cody is on the War Games team for the babyfaces now. That's the only way his inclusion was going to work here. Because without Rollins, who's out with injury, it doesn't really make sense. Now McIntyre's there, it makes sense. So we have 4 on one side. Punk, Cody, Jimmy Uso is now throwing his name into that, along with Jey Uso. So it's 4 on 4 right now. Something else is going to happen. Something else is going to happen. Now, I think where we're going is, no, it's not Austin Theory. I think Brock Lesnar will be back to be that insurance policy for the Vision. And then, I wonder who's going to be on the babyface side. The babyface team for number 5, Roman Reigns, is going to be back on Monday to fill that 5th spot. And he's going to back his family up against the Vision, who he's had a problem with. He's battled Bronson Reed most of the year. Obviously, Breaker wants a piece of Roman. McIntyre and Roman don't have a friendly banter at all. And I do believe that with Lesnar's inclusion, obviously his history with Roman Reigns works as well. Lesnar's inclusion, obviously he's got history with Cody. He's got history with Punk. So Lesnar makes sense. Reigns makes sense. It's not going to be LA Knight. LA Knight's not getting a War Games spot. It's going to be Lesnar and Reigns. They want to make this as big as possible. LA Knight's not going to make it as big as Roman Reigns. And LA Knight, though he's battled the Vision, I think LA Knight's going to keep his eyes on hopefully winning the John Cena tournament. That's what he's doing to keep himself busy this November. But McIntyre's inclusion makes sense, and I actually quite like it. And I had pitched way back when that McIntyre should really join the Vision as a member of the faction in general. So I like the fact that Paul Heyman made sense of his suspension. You know, I have orders from the top that I could take anybody from either brand to fill one of my spots on War Games. So he chose the guy that Nick Aldis had conveniently suspended only a week ago. So I actually quite like that. And his inclusion makes a lot of sense in multiple aspects. But all in all, I didn't think SmackDown was anything great. People were telling me I missed a great show. I would have not missed the concert on Friday for this show. It was a good show, okay show. I think good is a little bit too good of a word to use for the show. It was an okay show. It was better than the week prior, which was awful, which is a low bar. They need help. Roster is something that they need to focus on, and moving the show from 2 to 3 hours is not going to help the show in its current state. Dragunov is great. He wrestled Axiom. They had a very good match. Quiet for the first half, but they really picked it up in the second half, and he's just killing it. Dragunov is great. It's not enough to keep that show afloat and keep it interesting on a Friday night. So there's your little mini SmackDown review. There is your thoughts on SmackDown moving to 3 hours. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure you hit that thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. I want to know in the comment section what you think. Sound off in the comments. What do you think of SmackDown moving from 2 to 3 hours? Give me some pros. If there are any, there are none. And give me some cons. What do you think about SmackDown going 3 hours? And I will be back with more content. We got some other news still to come this week. TNA took the TNA World Championship off of Mike Santana. I don't know why, but they made a mockery of it, and they embarrassed themselves trying to spin his title loss into a real-life issue, but also playing the dirt sheets for the work that it was. We'll talk about that. And they also kicked out a journalist for leaking spoilers who's been working with the company for many years, supposedly, kicked him out of the tapings at Full Sail and told him don't come back. So TNA has really embarrassed themselves on 2 occasions this past weekend with their Full Sail University tapings. We'll go over that this week as well, with more live streams, of course, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Full Gear on Saturday for AEW. Hit that thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button down below as well, and turn on the bell for all notifications. We just hit 174,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for that. And I will be back with more content right here on Off the Script. I'll see you guys later.